En junkerred ved juletid.
Ching chang ching lutilej.
Og bring ham derved sneen hvid.
Ching chang ching lutilej.
Welcome to the topic of the episode show, as we call it Totes. Every week we give you a topic to discuss, and we talk about your feelings on that topic. Think of it like a top 10 list, but there's not necessarily 10 of them, and it's your favorites,
and
not
it's
ours.
Collaborative.
It is collaborative.
Because we will absolutely contribute to this.
We will contribute to this, and we want you to contribute to this. Every week we tweet that out on Twitter, because that's where tweets happen, and then we talk about it on the show. I would like to be able to announce it on the show as well, so we'll work on that as well, so just our YouTube people can jump in.
Yeah.
But this week's topic was our favorite turn-based RPGs.
Yeah, and so we had a lot of Final Fantasy, as you'd expect. Vanessa said Final Fantasy 4.
Yes.
Owen said Final Fantasy 7 and 8. Chris White said Final Fantasy 10. All of you, that's nice. Tanner White got the right answer, which is Final Fantasy 6. But I love that series because it brings so many different things to different people.
Yeah.
Like the twins in Final Fantasy IV and the Search for Medio, that just blew all that into a different realm. A lot of people played Final Fantasy VII for the first time, and it continued with the mixing of tech and magic.
Yeah.
That worked really well in 6, and then they leaned harder into the
Into the tech and all that. Yeah, I agree.
The evilness of corporations and Gaia, and there's a lot of themes that run throughout the Final Fantasy series. You got the Chocobos and the Cactrots and the Moogles and all that kind of stuff, and it's fun to see different iterations, different teams' takes on how these different things work. And so, that's pretty much always going to be a part of turn-based RPGs. Until you get to 13, and then it's not really, and 14 and 11 are MMOs. But for the most part, Final Fantasy has been kind of a bastion of where this remains.
Yeah. So Chris White also said Cosmic Fantasy 2, which I'm not as familiar with. Did you play Cosmic Fantasy 2?
No, I haven't
not either.
But I'm interested, so I'm going to check out and see if it's for Vita.
Yeah. I think that another one that doesn't get thrown in here enough, I would say, is Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because Pokemon is a turn-based RPG. You level up your Pokemon. Mm-hmm. You choose what abilities that they're going to have. Basically, spec them for battle. It's turn-based battle. I think that Pokemon is one of the few that's retained the time-based aspect in the current games, where a lot of these games are moving towards action RPGs, even if it's still on a timer. They try to make it more action-based, like the Final Fantasy 15, trying to do the best of both worlds, which I think Final Fantasy 7, from what we're hearing, is action. Which, to me, I say go all one way or all the other. God of War and other games have proven that you can do an action game, and Dark Souls, we talk about Dark Souls a lot, you can do an action RPG that is all action, and your stats still matter, that they matter in regards to your gameplay, so you still get that aspect of it. But turn-based RPGs, historically, when the reason that they were turn-based to begin with was the programming to do combat. Was very intensive, and if you had a game that did combat well, your graphics were poor. Something else would suffer because of the amount of space limitation, even on PC, because back then you had the big floppy disks, not even the tiny floppy disks, but the floppy disks. You don't have enough space to put all this stuff in the game, so either your game had like Bard's Tale is a great example of that. Bard's Tale on PC, not very good graphics, good story. Never good graphics, never good combat. The combat is turn-based. Yeah. It was a crutch that became a genre in regards to turn-based, and I think that it's one that still can do very well if done properly. Yeah. My friend Ben is working on a game, Witch, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's turn-based. It's a turn-based RPG. Yeah. And I know he did that because he likes the genre, and also because that allows him to really dive into the story and not have to spend too much time worrying about combat mechanics. Yeah. He worries about them, don't worry. I mean, they still worry about it, but
Another game that you can't really talk about turn-based RPGs without bringing up is Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
That was another one that was released, in the mid-90s on the Super Nintendo. And the Super Nintendo and the PlayStation 1 are kind of the homes of the biggest. Two other that I'm just going to mention briefly, the Wild Arms series and Suikoden 2 specifically. Suikoden 2 is the only one that I've played. You can get over 100 different characters.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And you build a team, you build a kingdom, and so like there's a strategy element to it, but the combat itself is turn-based. And you get a party going, and that's more fun because like the Dragon Warrior series or Dragon Quest was, you had the hero, the person, and you did that. But I really like when you can build different characters differently, and you can kind of build a team to go and take on this.
Oh yeah, which is one thing. I mean, Final Fantasy VII was my first time playing. I'd played a little bit of the timed RPGs, a little bit of those, but I never got to sit down and play one until Final Fantasy VII, where I played it myself. And I think that's why we talk about usually your favorite Final Fantasy is the first one that you play.
Yep.
And Final Fantasy VII was that for me because the story and everything just resonated so much with me. But you were talking about speccing a team. You can specifically choose to build out your team in a certain way, and the stats do more of the thinking. You can strategize not only with your play, like in chess, but you also strategize with saying, okay, well, I'm going to play this chess game, but I'm going to have 3 queens, and I'm going to have kind of to balance out how you want to play the game, which I think is really cool. Instead of relying on an NPC to try to catch up and try to heal you or something, you get to heal, but you've spec'd that character justly. Yeah.
And then we've got Darkest Dungeon. Yeah, Darkest Dungeon has raised the genre to levels that just blow my mind. And I kind of saved this toward the end because I want to talk about it more. Yeah. Okay, so you played some of Darkest Dungeon. Yeah. And so you are familiar with a lot of the mechanics and things. My favorite thing about Darkest Dungeon is that when you go in, you can kind of build out your core team. Like mine is Vestal, Plague Doctor, Man-at-Arms, either the Leper or the Crusader, depending on who I'm fighting. And so that way you have a lot of damage up front, you have a lot of damage for the back row, you can run that however you want. And it just puts it on another level. And I've not seen another game that puts so much into the RNG. Yeah. Because with a lot of other games, you've got some random stuff that's going to happen, but if you do the bum rush with Sabin in Final Fantasy VI, it's going to hit for a crazy amount, and this is going to be the most powerful attack. Darkest Dungeon, you shoot with your arbalest, and you hope with every hit there's a moment of, is it going to work? Is my plan going to work? Yeah. And that bringing that level of tension to a turn-based thing is something that took us literally decades to figure out how to do, and I freaking love it, and that's the game that I'm still playing. Yeah. And so as far as turn-based, you asked during the regular show if turn-based RPGs are dead. Absolutely not. Tokyo RPG Factory is working on this. Red Hook is continuing to work on Darkest Dungeon and expand it and bring out new stuff. I haven't gotten to the Crimson Court yet, but that's next on my list. And it is a limitless pool from which they can pull, because it's not something. Earlier in the discussion, you brought up that a big part of the reason that the genre was invented was because of physical limitations, but it's not something like. They had to build maps in a certain way back in the 8-bit era and such because of the physical limitations, and we're now able to do more and better. But as has been demonstrated with like pixel art and with things like that, there's something about that this particular mechanic that whose genius and ingenuity continues to be relevant because we can still do those things. And and Last Call Out to Darkest Dungeon,
Yeah.
there are still new things that can be done with it.
I agree. There's still new things to be done with it. It's a genre that I love. I worry that too many of the younger crowd will won't be patient enough for it, and that's my biggest worry. I think that's the thing that I think there are games that have shown that if you tap into a specific story or a theme, that it'll still work, because like the gameplay in regards to Five Nights at Freddy's, the gameplay is so simplistic, but it doesn't matter because of the theme, because of because of the strategy and everything. So I want this genre to continue, and I hope that there are games like Darkest Dungeon and others that continue to show the depth of the property. Yeah. And when we know more, when I have more to talk about on Witch, I will talk about that as well from Heartstring Studios. But let us know in the comments what your favorite turn-based RPGs are. And also let us know if the first Final Fantasy you played is your favorite, and if it's not, which two games pulled up. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. Talk to you guys later.